Hi both. How's it going today?
Yeah, good. Interesting conference.
Great day, yeah. A lot of things to see and to catch up. Yeah, it's very nice to be here.
Brilliant. It's wonderful to have you both. And we're going to have a bit of a chit chat today about responsible AI, one of my personal favourite topics. So I've got the timer here, so don't worry, I'm not going to keep you for hours because honestly, I think this conversation is one that could go on for a fair amount of time. Let's begin the discussion. Let's set the scene. How do we end up talking about responsible AI? Very often when we start talking ethics, it means perhaps something's gone wrong for us to raise this conversation. And I think it's fair to say that there are many examples, unfortunately, of where AI has gone wrong, right? And there is this absence of responsible AI. The consequences of that, many organizations are having to deal with. Set the scene for me. How did we get here? What are the sorts of challenges that you see us having to solve in responsible AI?
I think the main issue comes out of the fact that we're using statistical machine learning to automate decision making. And we're not really using intelligence as such, so the applications don't understand what they're doing. And a good example is facial image recognition, which is one of the earliest areas where people have realized that these systems are, for example, racially biased and gender biased. And the fact is that they don't know that they are looking at faces and that they are supposed to identify people. And so this understanding that what we're doing is statistical pattern recognition and using this to automate decision making means that we really have to understand what is the performance of these systems and what is the quality of the data that we're putting in. How do we propagate historic bias that has manifested itself in the data, and how do we make sure that we are preventing these biases going into machine learning models and then into application and negatively impacting people. That's kind of the challenging space that we have to look at.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, and in addition, if we think about AI, why we are here now is because we are incorporating AI to solving the big problems that we have as a society. We are not using AI just because it's fun. Many people do, but we are trying to solve problems in society. We're trying to improve the planet. We're trying to save many things that are in danger using AI. Why? Because it's proof that can handle a lot of data that human cannot do. However, as was mentioned, there are based on statistical principles that we need to explore and go beyond that. So if we put everything together, the relevance is because it's not for fun. Let's not be dramatic, it's not for surveillance of the planet, but is for progressing the humanity, for solving the essential issues that we have in health, in planet, sustainability, and so on. So it's very relevant to have this discussion today because of that.
Yeah. Now you mentioned there about facial recognition, and I think it's such a great example that most people have heard in the media. You don't even have to be in our community to have seen these things. For you at the moment, are you still seeing this kind of quantity of misuses of AI or potentially things going wrong? Or is it a case that there are less of these cases because we're all kind of thinking about it a bit more, especially since Netflix documentaries come out and really do make this top and very, very newsworthy content? Are you seeing more cases that are higher in the something's gone wrong, but less of them? What's going on in the market in that sense?
Well, I think within the AI industry, the awareness has grown a lot and everybody's talking about it. And I think especially in the UK, you see a lot about ethical AI and programs around responsible AI. And so that's the positive thing. On the other hand, you see more and more people applying AI and using products and building their own models. And we probably don't hear of all the things that go wrong. And you can look it up on the internet. There are registers of AI accidents where things have gone wrong. And this will keep happening because the applications become wider and we're seeing effects that we wouldn't have expected. One of the more recent developments is AI that performs well in the lab but doesn't once it goes outside the lab. And so I think we will struggle for a while with these sorts of effects.
Yeah, for sure. Now, so there's the challenge set up for us. We know that clearly there are things we need to be considering that perhaps, as you say, haven't been able to be quantified in the lab. They go out and we're seeing this new set of information that we perhaps didn't predict or were able to identify. Responsible AI is then the solution for that, right? Is really making sure that the AI that we are deploying is as safe as it can be. I mean, would you mind offering up a definition for what you view responsible AI as?
Well, that is a very tricky one because we haven't been able to agree in a universal definition, I believe. And the problem is that we see as computer scientists, for example, just one part of the picture. And there are other angles. This is not one field that should be applied. This is multidisciplinary and it's also interdisciplinary in the sense that we need inputs from everyone. We read in the guidelines that are being published everywhere a lot of definitions, maybe dozens of them. Some commonalities are, but I will not be that adventurous to give today a definition. What I'm trying to say is we should call for other members of the community and other fields to make a consistent definition that could be applied everywhere. So I think that is missing at the moment. There are many initiatives and they are moving in a good direction. However, I think we are a little bit far from having that universal definition that we all can apply to our models.
Yeah, I think Emmanuel is right. It's about diversity, interdisciplinarity, and forming teams that look at, let's say, the deployment of an AI product, not just from the perspective of the computer scientists who built it, but from the kind of the diversity of customers who are being affected by it, and from different kind of disciplines who understand what that means. What does it mean when I make automated decisions about people, and what are the potential impacts? So it's not just there's responsible AI, you apply it and you're done. It's more like an umbrella term for being aware that what you're doing is likely to go wrong, so you have to mitigate, and how do you do this best?
Yeah, it's certainly very subjective, and I think that the phrase that we hear all the time is just because you can doesn't mean you should, and I think many organizations are adopting that. And I think from my perspective, when I sit down with people like yourselves, it really does depend on what industry you come from as well. If you come from a heavily regulated industry, then chances are you've got more process in place before you're even allowed to delve into this world compared to, say, unregulated industries, for sure. And I think it was really interesting what you were saying there about almost this tick box exercise. And I think ethics can sometimes go into that space where it's, have you considered this, this and this? Yep, okay, we're done. And we know that's not going to work here because, as we say, you put AI in the wild and it behaves in a different way based off of different and data that we hadn't considered. But the other side of that is it's incredibly difficult to regulate a subjective term, and you know, we can get into the regulation discussion if you want, and I know it's a very heated discussion in the community of you know, allowing innovation but also not stifling it either. How do you make it meaningful? How do you make responsible AI meaningful, that it's not just a tick box exercise and that you are really considering those aspects?
Yeah. I mean, in a corporate environment, it's about creating the awareness that you're doing something where you're not 100% certain how it works and what the outcome might be. That you need to have the awareness that there's always an error that remains in the system. So you have to mitigate for this. And it's we are working a little bit against the hype in the field, right? This is tailing off, but the expectation in like product managers is, we apply machine learning or AI and we solve the problem, and the industry promises it will work. And so we are working a little bit against these kind of things. And the other problem is that historically in the kind of area of software development, there is no real regulation and quality checks, right? You can't check that the software program does what it's supposed to be doing. And so the whole community of computer scientists, software engineers are not used to this sort of regulation and monitoring that people who work in medicine or in aviation are used to. And so for them it's completely natural that you have checks and balances and that you go through certain rigorous procedures to make sure that you're producing the best product that you can. And So we need to adopt this sort of mindset when we're building software and automation. So it goes wider than just AI.
Yeah.
And also to validate the effects of it. When you have a solution and we apply it with all the checks and we are confident that it's the perfect solution for that particular problem. And then when we analyze the impact of that, we should also have that scope in division of how impactful it is and how we can prevent any wrong direction from the application that we are developing. And that is, at the moment, is not fully integrated into this pipeline. So we need to start incorporating the effect, the benefits, and also the impact to other systems, to other communities, or even to other industries, because in the end of the day, we will notice that we are integrated and we are related. You cannot produce an AI system that is isolated. We need to have that in mind, that it's going to share the ecosystem. So that is very important to have and to incorporate into these discussions. And I think that is happening. I think that is happening at the moment as we speak.
Yes.
Yeah, yeah. When it comes to responsible AI, who's talking to you about it? And in professional and personal life, is it a case that in your organization, is the business coming to you and having this discussion because they need to know things? Is it your team? Who's really kind of engaging in you in this conversation?
In my case, is a strategy for the company. The company is that big, and big companies are doing the same, that they are trying to be responsible, but they are also trying to do good for the society. So if they want to do that, they need to make sure that they have the proper tools. And one of the tools is to make sure that you are incorporating ethics and you are analyzing the effect of your solutions into the planet. There are a lot of checks. In corporations, there are a lot of checks, which in practice make a lot of sense for developing quality products, both responsible products as well. So in my case, is from the direction. I cannot say that, we create a concept and the research level, we are trying to move forward in that field. It's a whole policy from the top, and it's cascaded, and it's a research direction now that we have, and I think it's almost the same in every big corporation.
Yeah, I mean, it's a wide field of stakeholders across an organization. So we're working a lot with kind of the legal teams and the regulatory teams, the teams that are responsible for corporate governance, who have understood that there's a new space where we need to focus, and we're discussing with them what sort of procedures do we need to develop to get a handle on the problem. And and then product owners come and who want to build new solutions and say, how do we make sure that we incorporate this sort of thinking?
Yeah. Now, it seems for many organizations who are kind of at the innovative end of AI and, going out and doing these things, and then of course, we, as we spoke about at the beginning of this conversation, have had therefore repercussions of that and things that they didn't see necessarily coming in their path. Now, for some organizations who are deploying AI and machine learning now for the first time, hopefully there's the idea that you can build in responsible AI by design. What would be your top tips for approaching this in a way that's not overwhelming, but actually practical?
Yeah, it's a bit tricky because you get very little support yet from the kind of vendor space who are selling tools. It is getting better, but this idea that you need to check the quality of your data, that you need to build tests into your models from creation to basically over the whole life cycle, from deployment and in life, and the ability to track what happens and to log what happens, so that you get the kind of traces through your systems. And this requires a lot of facilitation and support by the vendors who provide these sort of tools. And it's getting better, but it's still not there. So there's a lot of own effort that you need to invest to make sure that you follow your own risk governance, and so you can readily apply the kind of risk governance models that you use for your own products and extend it to the AI space and make sure that you're tracking this.
Yeah.
And often we see that people, when they are developing those kind of systems, they focus only on what they know. They say, I know this and I want a product that will do this and so on. But I think an advice I would say is also be aware of what you don't know. Because if you start exploring what you don't know, then you can start having the sense of that scenario, that things could be wrong. If that is the case, what you will do. But most importantly, you can prevent that having the proper people helping you. So something that I will advise is know what you don't know and then ask for help. Make partnerships, strategic partnerships. There are companies that are far and in good shape, like big companies that we know. But the companies that are starting, they are not alone. They don't need to have hits and suffer. They can go to the community. The community is very open, is growing as well. And we all try to help. They are trying not only to make businesses, that is not, I think, the feeling for in my case, they're trying to help each other. So if you know what you don't know and then start asking for help to those guys, I think you will be in better position rather than getting the hits and suffering from making the grown approaches when you're developing new AI systems.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I think it's one of those things that sometimes it can feel like, I've been asked, running events like this and being at events like this, why would competitors get in a room and chat to each other? But actually it is very much understanding the market, understanding the challenges and the opportunities in a way that means that everyone is going to benefit. And I think responsible AI and the kind of ethics conversation is one of those pieces that really we all should be banding together, because I think if we as a community don't do that, the regulation may come on top that means it's not as well, I don't want to say thought through, but you know what I mean, where it's a case
absolutely,
of,
Yeah, I mean, the regulators have to educate themselves, right? So they're trying to regulate a new space, and a lot of the regulators don't fully understand AI and what it means and what the issues are, and then might come with naive expectations what you can regulate. So I think it's important to understand that this is an evolving field, and we are getting our bearings, and that means we can't have the mindset, oh, we solve it once and then we are good. It is something where we constantly need to keep on working, and that means our methods and procedures need to evolve, our understanding needs to evolve, and regulation will have to evolve over time as well.
Yeah. Now, I appreciate you didn't want to throw out a definition for responsible AI, and certainly from conversations I've had, there is such a huge umbrella. But for me, I mean, the conversations that tend to encompass this, you've got everything from explainability, fairness, accountability, transparency. Just as you were saying there, where it's a case of people love what they know and they tend to stay in that safety. When it comes to kind of this umbrella term, is there some things that are easier to achieve on the responsible AI, say for example accountability versus say transparency? What have you found in that respect? Is there areas of responsible AI that are perhaps easier?
I don't think so. The concept itself is very complex, and in my experience, there is not easy metric, for example, there is not easy concept, because if you only focus, for example, trying to explain how your model get the decision, you focus only on the features that you are using for that model. But that is just a small piece of the picture. So I think that is the complexity that we are facing, that we need to incorporate as much as possible, not only metrics and concepts, but also knowledge for other parts of the business, for example. And I think that is the complexity that we're dealing with. There is something that I would like to stress, that we cannot know everything, you, myself, but we can have collaboration, partnership, and start making that knowledge together. And that is the bit that we need to put into creating AI systems that are targeting to go to that scope. There is a fundamental problem here. What if I don't know one of those elements? Let's say explainability. If I don't know the best practices for explainability, at least I can go to these events and start learning the state of the art and so on, and start getting the sense. That doesn't mean that maybe my company will be able to do the best implementation, but can learn and can find partners. The goal is not explainable AI. The goal is to make the AI system more robust, more trustable, more reliable. And those elements are just small pieces that will make that big picture. However, there is something that was mentioned before. We are evolving. If you think that you have the perfect system now and it's trustable, reliable, and super secure, and we are having a misconception, because in the future that the same very system will be not reliable at all. So we need to think that in the back of the minds, that everything is evolving, and the perfect system today, maybe tomorrow, will be not that perfect.
Yeah. I mean, one way to start in the area is you can approach it like quality assurance, right? So with every company that builds products has some sort of quality assurance process and a risk management process. So apply these principles in the same way, and be aware of that you're building something like Emmanuel says. It might look that it's working today, tomorrow it might break. Another metaphor might be security, right? So you know that you have maybe built security into your software, and you have it built secure by design, but tomorrow the next exploit will come, and you know that things are going to happen that way, and you need to be aware and ready when the next exploit gets discovered, so that you put your countermeasures in place. And it's the same sort of thinking around AI. If you have the mindset that you're kind of building something where you know there's some rest error in there, and you will have to manage it at some point in time. So put the hooks in place for these kind of things.
Yeah, really, really great advice. And on that, as we wrap up here today, we've covered quite a lot in terms of responsible AI, in terms of this conversation. What would be, for each of you, perhaps one or two key pieces that you would love our audience to be just thinking about as they end this session here with us? What's something you would like them to carry through from this conversation?
Okay, I would say focus on the core, what it is you're doing. You're doing automated decision making based on data, and that means that you need to look at the quality of your data and be aware that the statistical methods that you're using have some error remaining in them. So this should be guiding your thinking around how you should manage this product or this service that you're building. And it means being aware that in the future it might break, and having the right understanding and risk management around these sort of expectations.
Yeah, brilliant.
Yeah, for me, I will say that you should try to understand what you really want to do, but also understand the tool that you want to use. Not because it's the hot name and the latest trend, you should adopt it. You should first understand the effects of using that kind of technology. And I think that is the top advice that I will try to say to the people, and to keep updating themselves with the evolution of the field. If I use a model that was 10 years ago, for example, I'm not aware that is still maybe strong today, but the deficiencies of it, I'm not aware of it, I will be in trouble if something goes wrong. So I need to understand and know what exactly I'm doing, and that is the best advice that I will say for just the people that we are with us today.
Absolutely incredible. Well, thank you both for taking some time to have a really important chat with me.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.